I'll start again. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is well and enjoyed the match on Saturday, be it at the ground or on the radio. It was very exciting. I was there, and I know so was Vic. Just a couple of announcements. Pencil in your diary, 21st of February. We've got a live event in the Legends Lounge. We're very pleased to have Jimmy Allen, Alan Mays and Andy Rowland joining us. So we're going to talk 79, 80 and early 80s seasons with them. So we will be sending out notification of prices and how to get tickets and things. Members, of course, will have priority. So we'll give them a couple of days in which to book their tickets. The other thing is the Colchester tickets. Now, I don't know if everybody was as confused as I was when I went on to buy them, but a permit is actually a ticket. That's the first thing to say. So when you actually go in, you can buy more than one ticket as long as you have the person's name and email address. What will happen is a couple of days before the match, those people will be sent an email which will include a health questionnaire. So I think that is what vaccinations you've had and such like. I got mine yesterday. I got 4. I had to put in all the names and the emails, and my confirmation said that a couple of days later, you will get your couple of days before the event, you will get a questionnaire, and then you will be sent an electronic ticket as well. So I hope that helps some people, because I know some people were struggling about what was a ticket, what was a permit, did they have to buy permits, could they buy more than one, that type of thing. So just to say that when I bought mine, that's what I had to do. And of course it is through the Colchester ticketing system, not the county ground. So you have to go on to theirs. Okay. If there's any other questions on that, please ask, and then I can get some clarification from the club if we can. So tonight we have got Jimmy Allen with us. Sorry, I'll start again. Jimmy Quinn. I've talked about Jimmy Allen previously. We got very happy to have Jimmy Quinn with us. So I'm going to hand you over to Vic. Any questions you've got, please leave in the comments. I am doing them myself tonight, so I'm going to have to cut and paste them over. So bear with me. So without further ado, let's bring Vic on. Hiya, Vic.
Hi, Chris. You had me worried a minute. I sort of scrolled back to my notes through Jimmy Allen, and I'm a little worried.
I try to boot up the other laptop to do the questions and all sorts.
Just to say that the SAS travel office behind the town end, that will be open tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So if you wanted to book for the upcoming trips, then that's where the office is, in the town end. The little window will be open. Mark will be in there. So 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
And they are taking for Tranmere on the 8th of February and Colchester on the 29th of January. Yeah. Brilliant. Right. We've kept him waiting. So let's bring Mr. Quinn on. Hi, Jimmy.
Good evening.
Sorry, you're not Jimmy Allen. You're Jimmy Quinn.
Jimmy Allen's got more hair than me.
Although you are both goalkeepers. So let's...
of sorts. Yeah.
Okay, right. I'm going to leave it to it. As I said, any questions, please leave them in the comments and we'll get through as many as we can. If we run out of time, as usual, I will cut and paste them and I'll send them to Jimmy anyway, so he can see what everybody else has said. Okay, so enjoy and I will speak to you later.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Jimmy, it's a great pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. And I was telling you just now, normally I have a couple of pages of notes, but I got so many notes on your career. It goes on for 4. So an incredible career, which we're going to go through in the next hour or so. Here we are in 2022. How do you look back on it? I mean, it must have been an extraordinary time for you.
Yeah, it seems a long time ago, Vic. I had a great time. Obviously played for a lot of clubs and scored a few goals along the way, and hopefully made a lot of people happy.
Well, you got a picture of you in a Northern Ireland shirt behind you, and one of your great goals, of course, was against the Republic, which was we'll get to a bit later. But things like that you remember for a lifetime, don't you?
Yes, yeah. It's I've had some great moments in football, both at club level and international. So very, very fortunate, yeah.
Comments are coming in already, and I had several as soon as we said we were going to do this. Craig says, another great servant for us. Could you ask Jimmy about his experience of managing the club during the boardroom struggles and financial crises of the 99,000 season? Perhaps he might have some insight and perspective on what happened in 2021. Well, we will, of course, get to that a little bit later on. Several questions on that. Sean says, Jimmy Quinn, give him the ball and Swindon will win. There we are, chant for you.
Lovely.
Right. The best place to start, I guess, is right at the beginning. 18th of November 1959 in Belfast. Now,
Yeah.
I'm guessing you were growing up in the 60s. How was the 60s for you growing up in Belfast?
It was good, Vic, up until the late 60s, when all the trouble started. We lived in Belfast, and then we moved out of Belfast to North Belfast to a large council estate called Rathcoole, and in fact, most of my friends were Protestant. I was a Catholic. I went to a Catholic school, Stella Maris in Rathcoole. That's not there anymore; it's been knocked down. But all my friends were Protestant, and to be honest with you, religion never came into it. But then the late 60s, I think it was 69. Going on to 70, there was trouble started. The army was brought into Northern Ireland. It was a regular thing seeing, army jeeps, and they had these vehicles called pigs. We called them pigs at the time. They were Saracens, I think. But yeah, it was. You got used to it. It was frightening as a kid, because you could hear shots going off in the night, and you could hear bombs going off in Belfast, and then of course you only had to turn the television on, and you seen there was riots everywhere, buses were getting burnt and everything else. So it was pretty scary for me. I was 11, 12 years old at the time, and I had three older brothers in the British Army across in England. So what happened in the end? All the Catholic families in Rathcoole got threatened out of Rathcoole by the UVF, and instead of going to another part of Belfast, because there was trouble all over then, we decided to move to. Mum and Dad decided to move to England, and we more or less came to England as like refugees, if you like. We ended up getting an army house where my older brother Frank, who's dead now, obviously, he died of a heart attack when he was 45 years of age, but he was in the army at a place called Balford, and the army ended up giving us a house until we could get a council house in a place called Durrington. So it was moving to England. It was totally different. It was quiet. It was lovely. But as I say, when you're brought up in that environment, you get used to it, and you get used to the troubles. And in fact, my mother, I always remember my mother. Most of her friends were Protestant as well. So religion never came into it at all with our family. But the fact that we had three of my brothers in the British Army, it was a pretty scary time, because we started getting threatening letters. I think whoever was doing it found out about my brothers, and we had to get out pretty sharpish, or else the threats were get out or we'll burn the house down, sort of thing. So yeah, it was a pretty scary time.
Goodness. How did that shape you, do you think? I was interested. I was listening to an interview with Sir Kenneth Branagh. You might well know he's just released a film called Belfast, which is about a child.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, but it's about a child growing up in Belfast, which he did as well. And obviously a thing like that would shape you, I'm guessing, as a person. How did it shape you as you went through life?
Yeah, I became sort of, I had two younger brothers who didn't really know too much about it, but for me it was frightening. I became a bit sort of withdrawn and total lack of confidence, in fact, the confidence was that bad because when we moved to England, I remember we went to school in Durrington where we got a house in the end, and everybody was sort of taking a mickey because of our Irish accents, you know.
Mm.
So if I was walking up the street, for instance, at the time, I'd cross the road to avoid somebody, you know, who was coming that way. So I've actually written a book, Vic, by the way, just before we go on, and I put the stuff in the book. So the fact that I sort of grew up in with a total lack of confidence for different reasons, and then obviously went on to become a footballer is just totally, it amazes me to think about it, you know.
Well, actually, the one thing you have to do to succeed in professional football is you do have to have a degree of confidence, don't you? So how did you get over that hurdle?
It's just work, really. You know, people tell you, you know, if you want to be good at something, you got to work hard. And I remember I didn't sign for Swindon until I was 21. I think it was December 1981 I signed for them, you know, after a trial. And but I was going out doing extra. I was running every day, Vic, and I was doing like sit-ups and press-ups, and I just wanted to. I was that sort of keen to be a footballer. I thought, well, when I was playing Sunday League at the time, just give you an instance, most of the lads I played with, they were always out on a Saturday night on the pop, you know, and I'd be staying in. I'd watch match of the day and go to bed early and look forward to the game on the Sunday morning. And sometimes I used to play twice on the Sunday, you know. And all my mates that I played with, they'd never even think about doing that. But I was that keen, you know, that much in love with football. I just kept as fit as I can, as I could, and always done extra and played as much football as I could. And in the end, it sort of paid off for me.
Well, it certainly did. We'll get to how it paid off in just a moment. This is from Adam. You've not seen nothing like the mighty Quinn. Adam Wright says, "Hey, top man Jimmy, shame it didn't work out with you as a gaffer, but hard times they were, and you gave it your all." Pete Lango, youth player at Swindon, Swindon's best number 9. And Terry Townsend says, "Do you remember playing in goal?" Well, it's something we'll talk about a little later because we were just discussing this. Pete says, "Will Jimmy's book be made available in the club shop, and will he do a signing session?" There you go. We'll throw that one.
Yes, definitely will. Yeah, it's taken a while. It's because of COVID and all that. It's sort of it's on the back burner, but it will come out eventually, and I'll let you know, Vic.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a fantastic story. Right. So non-league career with Whitchurch Airport. Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Congleton Town and Oswestry Town, and of course it was Oswestry that John Trollope bought you for £10,000. Now, most people suddenly find out a professional football club's coming in for them. How did you feel?
Well, it was brilliant. I mean, I remember going down to Swindon. The manager at Oswestry at the time got me a trial match. He knew Danny Williams very well, and they set up a trial match against an army team, a select army team. And I think we, you know, I played up front, and I think we won about 7 or 8-0, but I never scored. So I thought I'd blown it here, but apparently Danny Williams told our manager that he'd seen enough to give me a contract. You know, I went up for a couple of balls, and apparently I left a couple of the airmen on the floor, and I think that was he said that was good enough for him. So yeah, it was. I won't tell you what my first contract was, Vic, by the way. You'd laugh your head off, but I was just so pleased to be taken on and to do, you know, to be a footballer and do it full time and train every day. It was like a dream come true to me, and obviously, you know, Swindon Town, you know, I was fully aware of the past histories, winning the League Cup in '69, and some of the great players like the Don Rogers and all that. And when you're young and that, you think, well, you know, could I make a difference? Could I be a top player? And that's what you strive to try and do.
How did it go for you to begin with? Because I don't think you got into the first team for a while, did you? It took you a while to make your mark, really, as it were.
It takes you, when you come out of non-league, it takes you a while to adjust to, because non-league football then, Vic's, totally different to what it is now. Non-league football these days is very professional. You know, that a lot of the teams are probably as professional as the league teams, you know, and the setups and the training methods and everything else. Basically, when I played non-league, it was train Tuesday and Thursday and play on a Saturday. But there wasn't the sort of fitness levels or the expertise behind it all that you've got today. So it did take me a bit of time to get used to full-time training. I remember playing the reserves, and here's something that'll make you laugh. I always remember playing the reserves, and one of the big games was we played away at Ipswich Town. And Ipswich always had one of the best pitches in them days. So everybody looked forward to playing there. It was like a bowling green. And they always used to play with the black and white World Cup balls, you know. Whereas all the other games were with the normal mitre, you know. So everybody looked forward to that. But I remember we had a pre-match meal this particular time, playing Ipswich Reserves. And my pre-match meal was sirloin steak and a pint of milk. But, you know, it's probably the worst things to have before a game of football. So, it was...
Red meat is not exactly good for the digestive system, is it?
No.
No. How was the financial side of Swindon at the time? Because, you know, this was the sort of early 80s, wasn't it? And, you know, things weren't great at Swindon, were they?
Well, I'm not too sure about the financial state of the club, because when you're a player, you don't really think about those things. But I wasn't on a lot of money. The club... To be honest with you, I was earning less money playing for Swindon than I was when I was working and playing for Oswestry, because I was working and then getting some money from Oswestry as well. And I actually signed for Swindon for less money. So it's not all about people think the footballers are all millionaires. It wasn't the case. I was just so pleased to be a professional, to be able to have a chance at further in my career and maybe making it into the first team eventually. And for the first, I think it was 4 or 5 months, that's what I did. Don't forget, at the time we had Andy Rowland, Alan Mays, Paul Rideout, who was like an England star, young England star at the time. So I had a lot of good players to look up to, and I'd watch them and take bits off them. You know, they all had different qualities. Paul Rideout was different class. You know, he could shoot with both feet. Wasn't probably as good in the air as Andy Rowland was. Alan Mays was like small and nippy. He could drop his shoulder and leave defenders for dead. And they all had different qualities. And I tried to watch them as much as I can. And then eventually I got into the first team squad. I think it might have been my first match. One of my first matches was I was sub against Walsall at home. I don't know if is that right? Yeah,
it is. Yeah. And then just after that, your full debut, it was in a match against our dear neighbours who play in yellow up the A420 from Swindon. His name begins with O. And if I remember rightly, it was a 3-2 win. But there were, I do remember it because I was in the town then. There was a lot of trouble, smoke bombs going off here, there, and everywhere. It was quite a game, wasn't it? In fact, if I remember right, the first goal went in when a smoke bomb had gone on the pitch, and they said the keeper couldn't see the goal.
Yeah, well, it was frightening because I'd never really. I'd been used to playing in front of at Oswestry. There's probably 200 people, you know, and then you're playing a local derby like that against your nearest rivals, and smoke bombs going off, and the atmosphere was fantastic, you know, and it was. I remember another game we played at Oxford, and they had a Briggs and Shotton at the back. Do you remember them, Vic?
Yeah, very hard.
They didn't take any prisoners, I tell you that. You know, and I made the fatal mistake at Oxford. I was at the near post for a corner of backing into Gary Briggs, and he stepped in front of me and gave me an elbow right in the stomach and winded me, and down I went. You know, but he was clever. He looked to see where the ref was. There wasn't as many cameras in them days, and I went down like a sack of, and it taught me a lesson, like don't mess about with the big boys. But I got him back because he ended up going to Blackpool. When I was at Reading, we beat Blackpool 4-0, and I think I scored a goal in that game, and played very well.
Was that kind of moment when you thought, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm in professional football"? Because I think as we know, there's dark arts in professional football, and these players knew what they were doing, didn't they?
Yeah, the game's totally different now. I'm an ambassador at West Ham at the minute, and we see games, and there's some players that we thought, well, if he'd have played in our day, he'd have got kicked over the fence, by somebody. And even when I was at West Ham, people like Alvin Martin, Julian Dix, didn't take any prisoners. I tell you, the tackles, and how they got away with some of it was ridiculous. It was just so blatant. But that's the way it was. But it's totally changed the game. But in them days, we had a lot of good players, and for me, just coming to the club as a new player, trying to make it in the game, there's some great players to learn stuff off. I was very fortunate. Yeah.
One notable was the 7-0 demolition of Kettering, which I think you got a couple in, didn't you? That's a well-known result for Swindon fans in the FA Cup. We don't have a lot of success in the FA Cup until this season. And then you scored in a 2-1 home defeat by Blackburn, I think it was, in the FA Cup. And that eventually led to you moving to Ewood Park, didn't it? Because, this was at a time when Swindon was struggling in the league, let's be honest, and relegation to the 4th division, etc. So did you want to go to Ewood Park? Was that an obvious choice for you to do?
Well, I remember at the time we had a change of managers and that. Lou was in, and then Lou left, and then I think it was Ken Beamish took over, and then John was there. I can't remember. There was a bit of upheaval and stuff, and I was out of contract. And to be fair, the club, I think Ken Beamish might have been in charge, Vic, and I was offered pittance to stay. So I just had a look to see who was after me, and that, and I had about 10 clubs after me in the end. But I had teams like Plymouth, Cambridge United was one of them. There was a couple of other clubs in the 4th division at the time. But Plymouth Argyle, who were in the 3rd division, I went down and spoke to them. But then all of a sudden, Blackburn Rovers come on the scene. Bobby Saxton wanted to speak to me, and they were in the old 2nd division, which is the championship today. And to be honest with you, when I spoke to him and I seen the players that they had, and people like Glenn Keeley, Derek Fazakali, Terry Gano was in goal. There's so many good players, and they were always up the top half of the league as well. And it was a no-brainer really, because it was the highest grade of football. There was a team from the highest league that was after me. So I just said, and to be honest with you, I was offered more money at Plymouth Argyle than I was at Blackburn, but the pure fact that Blackburn were in the old 2nd division at the time, the 2nd league, was a deciding factor. I thought, well, I want to play as high as I can, and they're the biggest club from the highest division that have come in for me. So, and I like Bobby Saxton. Bobby was down to earth. He didn't beat about the bush. He said, "This is what we give you. If you do well, we'll have a look at it again," sort of thing. And I went in there and I done very well. In fact, I scored quite a few goals in my career, but not many hat tricks. But I scored a couple of blinding hat tricks when I was at Blackburn Vet. I scored away at Wolves when they had Steve Bull and them up front. I scored a hat trick, and I also scored a hat trick at Sheffield United at Bramall Lane for Blackburn Rovers. So it was a good decision to go there. And for 2 seasons, we just missed out on getting into the 1st division, which would be the Premier League today. The 1st season by a point, and the 2nd season by goal difference. There was only one team on up then, so we had a very, very good team.
Yeah, I was going to say, looking through your career, the one thing you do is score goals at every club you've been at. I mean, it's an extraordinary record. You know, and well, that's your job, isn't it? Let's be honest. You're a striker.
Yeah.
That's what you're there for. But when you're scoring these goals, did you often look back to Whitchurch Airport and think, "This is what I want to do. This is why I work so hard"?
Yeah, I did. I remember I played at Whitchurch and scored a few goals, and there was a couple of lads in the team, and they said, "Oh, you should try and play in leagues higher. You're too good for this, you know." And it wasn't really until then, Vic, that I had the confidence to think, well, yeah, maybe I am good enough, and you know. And then that's when I started sort of doing a bit extra training, you know, staying out. I wasn't a drinker then anyway, you know. Didn't have much to drink at all. I had an odd pint of lager then, but it was just like focusing and putting everything into it really. And in the end, you know, I had the trial match at Swindon and became a professional after that, which was fantastic in my mind anyway.
Yeah, and then Lou comes back in for you, doesn't he? And brings you back to Swindon. And you mentioned drinking. The one thing Lou didn't like was drinking, wasn't it? I mean, he was teetotal himself. And, you know, he was famous for being hard on players who drank. He didn't like drinking. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So what about that second spell? Eventually it led to promotion, of course, 86, 87. But sadly, you missed out on the Gillingham game at Selhurst Park, didn't you?
Yeah, I got injured, and you know, but it shows you what a good side we had and what a good side Lou put together.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we had Steve White and Dave Bamber at the time. You know, you wouldn't get any better at that level of football. But yeah, I remember sitting in the stand and watching the game, and I was delighted for the lads. You know, because you think to yourself, when you're injured and you can't play, you think, well, bloody hell, if we get beat here and I'm injured, you know, absolute nightmare. But the fact that the lads went out and beat Gillingham, because Gillingham had a good side at the time.
Yeah.
They had a lad at the back, Colin Greenall, that I used to have fights with every time I played him. He was as hard as nails, and but we always shook hands afterwards and made up and that. But we used to knock lumps off each other, you know. And yeah, but at Crystal Palace, that was a great night. It really was. Whether you were playing in the team or whether you were there just supporting the team. Obviously, I was sat in the sun supporting the team, but I was in the dressing room afterwards with the lads, and I was delighted because, you know, we wanted to play in the next league up, and I had eyes on that, and I thought, well, it's another league up. It's a chance for me to show what I've got, and you know, once I get myself fit again, you know, I should be back in the team.
Well, what you've probably forgotten is that you helped a young football commentator out that evening at Selhurst Park, and that was me. You sat alongside me and helped you in the commentary.
There you go.
There you go. So it was a fantastic night. It was a Friday night, a hot, balmy Friday night, if I remember rightly. And
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Scoring early on and then got another one later on, and fantastic celebrations on the pitch a little later as well.
At the end, yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, the goals kept on coming, didn't it? And you know, that move to Leicester that we were talking about a little early on, 31 goals in all competition the following season, incredible season for you. And then Leicester come in. It's subject to a £210,000 move, but you didn't really want to go, did you?
No, I didn't. And you know, I wasn't on hardly any money, Vic. You know, and I was hoping and praying that the club would, you know, sort me out in some way. But I remember moaning my head off at the time. I was saying to myself, and you know, obviously you confide in your teammates, don't you? Saying that, you know, I'm on ridiculous money. Why don't they sort me out and everything else? And that must have got back to Lou, because he never even spoke to me. You know, if the club had sat me down and whatever, and I never had an agent in my career either, so it wasn't a case of you know, they were sitting in front of an agent and an agent asking for the world or anything. It was just me, and they probably would have got me for a lot less than they probably thought I wanted, you know. But that never happened. So I just decided to go. Excuse me a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
There's quite a few clubs after me, actually. I remember talking to Ron Atkinson. He was the West Brom manager, and but I ended up going to Leicester City. I spoke to David Pleat and whatever. And the funny thing about that was, I think I scored 3 goals against Leicester, scored 2 at home and 1 at Leicester in the season when I scored 31. And when I got there, I was on the bench up until nearly Christmas. He was playing Mike Newell and a lad called Nicky Cross, who they'd only scored 10 goals each the previous season. And I was on the bench. So it was a really frustrating time for me, you know, but yeah.
Andy says, fantastic night at Selhurst Park. I think Cammy also missed out on that night. Stephen says, what did you like and dislike about being a professional footballer? I mean, most of us who would love to have had the talent to play professional football, there would probably be nothing you dislike, but I'm sure there is. I mean, you know, and as you've mentioned there, you're a bit of a commodity, aren't you? And if a club wants you to move on and get money for you, that's not a great thing, is it?
No, but the thing was, when I left, it went to tribunal because I was on that so low money at the time. I think Swindon were after like $500,000. And, you know, everybody I spoke to said, there's no way they'll get anywhere near that, you know. And then the tribunal at the end, you know, I think it was 200 and some thousand, wasn't it?
210, yeah.
210,000, you know. So it just shows you, probably even in them days, you know, a striker that scores 31 goals, you'd be at least worth $500,000, wouldn't you? But I think I was on about 325 quid or something, you know, which, and everybody I spoke to, that's always been a problem with me. Everybody thinks I'm a millionaire, but it's far from it. You know, it's I enjoyed every minute of it, but money was never my goal. You know, I played with plenty of players, and it was all about money. You know, but it was never. It was purely playing football, doing something you love doing, and just because you got paid for it, it was just an added bonus for me. But yeah, it was a bit frustrating because I didn't really want to leave Swindon. We just moved house down to Covingham, me and my ex-wife Jackie. So we just wanted to sort of be settled there, but unfortunately, it never came through. You know, for whatever reason. Lou would probably tell you better. But I never even, when I went back to West Ham, I should have asked him, shouldn't I? But I didn't.
Yeah. So off you go to Leicester. You do well there. Then moves to Bradford City and West Ham follow. Now, Bradford City, you're playing against West Ham, and somebody you know is the manager of West Ham, I think, at that time, one Lou Macari, and that leads you going to Upton Park, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I scored the winning goal against Bradford City. And then where it came to a head at Leicester, the following week, we were away at Shrewsbury Town. And Shrewsbury Town had a really good side at the time. And I remember on the way there, on the bus, David Pleat pulling me up the front and he said, listen, I know you're going to be disappointed, but I'm only playing one striker and I'm going to start you on the bench. And I said, fair enough, you know, you're the manager, you pick the team, whatever. But I scored the winning goal the previous week and I was disappointed. And I said to him, listen, I'll need to come and have a word with you on Monday. So anyway, went to Shrewsbury. And as I said, they had a good side at the time. We were 3-0 down after 15 minutes. And I think I got on with about 15 minutes to go in the second half. And it was still it ended up 3-0 the game anyway. Never really got into it. And I just went in on the Monday and said, listen, I need to play football. I don't care where it is, but I just want to play in somebody's first team. I don't want to be sitting watching every week. You know, I've come into the game. I love playing the game, and I know I can score goals, and that's what I want to do. So reluctantly, he put me on the transfer list, and off I went to Bradford. And then, of course, I was there for Terry Orth was the manager, and Norman Hunter was the assistant. So you couldn't get two better people for me. They were great, both great players. Terry was a great manager in his own right, very, very underrated manager. He eventually made me captain of the team. And come round, we played, ended up playing West Ham in the league, and it was 1 each. And I think it was the 90th minute, I volleyed one in the corner. And then about a week later, I had Mr. Macari on the phone. Do you want to come down to West Ham? And I'll be honest with you, Vic, I said to him, I love it up here. I don't really want to go live in London. You know, I want to stay here and that. But the deciding factor was that Terry Yorth pulled me the next day. Lou said he'd ring me back, and Terry said, "Listen," he said, "I'm not getting on with the chairman." The chairman was a guy called Jack Tordoff. It had a big car franchise up in Bradford, and Terry said, "I'm not getting on with him at all." He said, I won't be here long myself, you know." He said, "Get yourself off to West Ham." And I said to him, "Terry, I don't really want to live in London, you know." And he said, "No," he said, "it's a great opportunity. Get yourself down there." So that was it, really. Lou phoned up. He said, "I've agreed a deal with Bradford City. Come down, we'll have a chat with you and whatever." And the rest is history. I went and signed for West Ham United, which was brilliant. Unfortunately, Lou wasn't there too long, Vic.
No, we'll get to that in a minute. 320 grand that was. One thing I haven't asked you about, and everybody says about, so I'm going to go back to Swindon, the goalkeeping incident. Fraser Digby, 50th minute, Aldershot. Swindon 2, Aldershot 0 at the time. This is a couple of steps from Wembley in the Freight Rover Milk, whatever it was called in those days. And then one Jay Quinn dons the green jersey. So was there much discussion on the pitch about that, or was it a case of, because Lou came on to reorganise? I remember this.
I think it was Lou. It was Lou. I didn't volunteer for it. It was Lou. Lou says, "Get Quinny and get Jimmy, get in goal," you know. So I went and got Fraser's gloves. They were too big for me because he's got massive hands. So I went in goal, and anyway, as you know, it's history now. We got beat, and I let a few goals in and whatever. And of course, the lads were calling me Dracula and all sorts. You know, he's fighting the crosses and couldn't catch a cold and this, that, and the other. And I said then, it didn't work out like that, but I said then, that's my last time I'll ever go in goal. You know, because I scored one of the goals, didn't I? We were 2-0 up, and
you did,
and cruising really. But as I said earlier, you know, they had Martin Foyle up front at the time. Martin went on to play it out, you know, for Port Vale in the first division and that, and was a hell of a player. I think he scored against me, but I blended defence anyway. It's Colin Calderwood's fault.
Yeah, fair enough. If I remember right, it was Martin Foyle that Fraser brought down to get the red card.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So, a very frustrating night for everybody involved, I think, with Swindon. I don't blame you, Jimmy. It's okay. I'll let you off that one. Sean says, absolutely brilliant. Listen, Jimmy, fascinating. Come on, you Reds. So thank you very much for that. Steve Barrett says, one of my favourite away days, Hull versus STFC, 4-1 victory. Dave Bamber, Roy Wegerle, and of course, Jimmy. And there were some great days, you know, in that era. Roy Wegerle, of course, American international. There were some fantastic performances, weren't there, in that era?
There was, but that whole game was Lou Macari said to lads, right, we're playing Hull City on I think it was a Tuesday night, Vic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday. And he says, if we beat Hull City, we're taking you away to Eilat in Israel. But you've got to win the game. If you don't win, you're not going. So we were like chomping at the bit, weren't we? Brian Horton was the manager at Hull at the time, and we won. I think it was 4-1, and I scored 1 or 2 in that game. I'm not sure, but every single one of the lads, you know, we played out of our skin, and we were playing well anyway at the time. We had a good side, but you know, it was they were a pretty, you know, decent team at the time, and in fact, I think Brian Horton got the sack the day after the match, but we went directly from the Hull City game down to Gatwick Airport and then flew out to Eilat in Israel for a break.
Very nice. The old Boothbury Park, of course, Hull no longer there, but a rickety old stadium, if I remember rightly.
That's right.
Yeah. So to West Ham, then we are now an ambassador there, and we'll talk about that at the end, but. Let me ask you about one particular Sunday afternoon, and you know what I'm going to talk about. It's Swindon 2, West Ham 2. One Jay Quinn scores for West Ham. Boo. It was Lou McCloskey's dead blue, I think it was, in goal for the Hammers. We all expected Lou McCurry to turn up because by then he'd moved on, of course, to the West Ham manager's job. Yeah. You expected him to turn up, but of course he didn't. So what are your remembrances, your memories of that particular day?
Well, Lou's the manager, and we all went up on the coach, and Lou wasn't on the coach, but we went to other games when Lou wasn't on the coach, and so we didn't think much of it. And then we got to Swindon Town, obviously, going back to my old club. My best mate, Roger Higgs, was coming to the game, and I remember after the game, he was telling me he was getting a load of stick and all that because I was getting stick at the time off the fans, and a lot of the fans knew Roger. Me and him were best pals. We're still best mates now. I see him all the time for my sittings. And when I banged a couple of goals in, he had a great time in the stand. Roger sending all the people he knew. He said, "I told you he was going to score, didn't I?" But Lou wasn't there, and we ended up playing the game. Everybody was thinking, what's going on. We didn't have a clue, to be honest with you. Yeah, obviously I was focused on trying to play as well as I could against my old club, and I've been quite lucky in my career that most of the teams I've played for, if I ever went back and played against them, I've managed to score. So I scored a long-range shot, actually, the first goal, which I was surprised went in. I think it just crept under Fraser, that was from about 20-odd yards, and that went in. But the best goal of the game was my header, the second one. And people said, "You didn't, me." I did, and it was I can't remember who it was. I think it was Stuart Robson in the midfield, headed it across the box. And I was like running away from goal, and I just arched me back and headed it, and it looped into the far corner over Fraser, which wasn't easy because Fraser's, in the league at that time, he was as good as you'd get keeper-wise, and that obviously there was a second goal, and we managed to get, it ended 2 each, which I was glad about because I'd have got even more stick if I'd have scored the 2 and we'd have won the game. So I was pretty pleased. It ended 2 each. Everybody was happy all the way around. But Roger, my mate, he had a great time in the stand. He was like ribbing all the lads. I told you he was going to score and all that. So yeah, it was good.
And it wasn't long after that Lou departed, of course, West Ham, was it? And this was, without going into the ins and outs of the controversy, you'll be well aware of. It was pretty soon after that Lou departed.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we didn't sort of know what was going on really until the following week, and then Billy Bond took over the team. So he had a meeting with all the players and saying, "Listen, Lou McCurry's gone." He didn't say why or whatever. He just said that he's taking charge of the team and for everybody to continue what we were doing, give it your best shot, and that was it really. And of course, later on we found out that Lou left, and there was a court case pending and stuff, So.
Yeah, that side was pretty successful, West Ham, weren't they? And I think promotion followed, didn't it? To the old First Division. And I've got a funny feeling. I think they got promotion on the day that Swindon played at West Ham, got beat 2-0, and it was the day that West Ham went up. I don't know why I remember that, but there we go. But you moved on, Bournemouth, Reading, and Peterborough. I mean, let's talk about Reading, because my goodness me, I think you're in. This is from Steve, by the way. Jimmy, you are such a great guy. You're so friendly and genuine. I met you at an open evening when you were manager. You showed me around the ground. You were a gentleman. Thank you. And I think that's coming through all the time at the minute, all those messages that we're getting. So you're very warmly regarded at Swindon Town. You should know that. Yeah. Let's talk about Reading, because I think you're in their best all-time 11, aren't you?
Yeah, I was voted the best striker the last 30 years by the fans. You know, considering the team have been the club have been in the Premiership 2 or 3 times and stuff, it's a great, you know, accolade to, you know, that people think of you like that. And I went back there I was back Reading a couple of years ago, and we done like a question and answer night with Mickey Gooden and that. And I had fellas coming up to me my own age, nearly in tears, you know, saying me, "Oh, you thanks very much for, you don't know how much it means to be talking to you." And well, you know, we used to idolise you when you play, and you don't think of yourself in those terms. People think like that, but they do. They love the fans love the football, and they don't forget people that you know, bring them a bit of joy. And you know, obviously, I was lucky. I played up front. You know, we had a lot of good players, and all the teams I played in, we had some fantastic, you know, goalkeepers, defenders, and everything else. But you know, obviously, they remember people that put the ball in the back of the net, because when you do that, you win games, don't you? So you just thought of a little bit more than perhaps other positions in the team. But it's always been hard for me to get around that sort of thing. You know, when people come up and they're sort of laying all this praise on you and that, and you feel like you don't deserve it. But it's just a nice feeling that people think of you that way.
Absolutely. You were joint manager, of course, with Mick Gooding as well, weren't you? And
Yeah.
Let's talk about another goalkeeping incident, because you like this, don't you? You like going in goal, don't you?
Yeah, but I swore I'd never go on goal after the Swindon game. But I was player manager at Reading. We played West Bromwich Albion it was the old second division. I think it was the Championship at the time. And Bobby Mikhailov, he was a Bulgarian goalkeeper we got in to replace Shaka Hislop, who went to Newcastle. He broke his arm just before half time. He sort of fell awkward, and Pesci Scalido slid in on him. And anyway, he didn't know it was broke then, but he couldn't move his arm. And anyway, we went in the changing room, and me and Mickey are standing there, and I said, "Right, who wants to go and goal?" And there was complete silence. There's no answer. So Mickey looked at me, he said, "Jim, you're going to have to go in." And straight away, I thought, I went in goal for Swindon and let 3 in, Mickey, you know, but I didn't say that, obviously. I just said, well, changed my shirt, got Bobby's shirt on, and got his gloves and whatever. And lo and behold, and West Brom weren't a bad side at the time. They had Gabardini and Pesci Scalido up front, and I kept a clean sheet for 45 minutes. But I was a little bit more experienced then. So I was a bit more of a talker, and I pushed the lads at the back. I told them to get up out of the box. So if there was anything going to come towards a goal, hopefully it would be long range shots, and I can maybe have a chance of saving them. They had a couple of shots, and I caught one actually, and there was about 2 of them I should have caught. They had a push around the post and whatever. But yeah, we ended up keeping a clean sheet, and we won 3-0.
Excellent. So you're becoming an experienced goalkeeper. But the sad thing about your time at Reading was it was a reorganisation of the Premier League, wasn't it? And so,
yes,
you know, you finished second, and that normally would mean promotion, of course, but it didn't, did it?
No. Well, Mark McGee left around the Christmas period, I think it was, and went to Leicester City. Got to Leicester City, and he took all the staff. So John Medeski, the chairman of Reading at the time, he put 4 of us in charge to start with, and then I had a meeting with Mick, and I said, "Listen, you can't put 4 people in charge of a team. It's bad enough, you know, 2, like, you have too many voices, you know, too many opinions, whatever." So in the end, they decided to put me and Mickey in charge as joint managers. It's not something I'd ever contemplate doing again, Vic, by the way, but at the time, it was just sort of thrown at us, you know, take charge of the team. Didn't have any coaching qualifications at the time, so we were thrown in at the deep end. Didn't have any experience as managers, but what we did know was that we had a good team, a good set of players. That you know, we were up. I think we were 6th or 7th in the league at the time when we took over, and we just managed to galvanise the lads and get them playing the same way. We didn't change too much in that way because, you know, Mark McGee had us playing good football anyway. So we just tried to encourage, and then me and Mickey had it was tough because the both of us were still probably the better players in the team as well. So we had to play at times, sometimes together, and sometimes one of us would go on the bench and the other one would play. And that's where it becomes very difficult, particularly when you're like a joint manager, trying to do 2 or 3 teams. I remember playing a couple of games, and when you're coaching the team all week and everything else, you don't get enough time to rest yourself. And I remember playing in a home game, and I was absolutely exhausted because it's not just like training the team and sorting out the tactics and everything else. You've got to deal with the media, you're dealing with the board, you're dealing with every Tom, Dick and Harry, and you don't get a chance to look after yourself, to get yourself in the right sort of frame of mind and the right fitness level to go out and compete on a football pitch. So it was very, very hard. But as I said, we had a terrific set of players at the time, and we ended up getting into the playoffs pretty easy. In fact, Middlesbrough, who came first in the league, Vic, we beat them at Ayerson Park, and we drew, I think it was 0-0 at home. So we took 4 points off them in the league, and they ended up winning it. And then, of course, we went in the playoffs. We played Tranmere Rovers home and away in the semis. We won 3-1 up at Tranmere, and I think the home game was either 0-0 or 1 each. So we got to the final, and the rest is history. We started off brilliantly, and we're 2-0 up, and then we missed a penalty, and we missed an open goal. The keeper was on the floor just after the penalty. We could have been 4 or 5. There's no word of a lie. We could have been 4 or 5 goals up at half time, but then we got a couple of injuries in the second half, and it all turned around. The momentum turned around, and once you lose that momentum, it's very, very hard to get it back. And Bolton were at the ascendancy. They just took the bull by the horns and finished the game a lot stronger than we did, and ended up winning it.
Yeah, great shame for you. Let's turn then to Swindon, because time is rattling on. But, this is a very important time in Swindon's history. More comments coming in. Peter says, you scored regularly for every team you played for. Incredible. And that is, as I was looking through, one of the most amazing things about your career. You just bag goals wherever you want. Andrew said, what a great man, especially anyone who scores a hat-trick versus Bristol City for us, 87, is a legend.
There's a story behind that.
Oh, go on then. Quickly.
Well, we got Bristol City. It's like a local derby, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the League Cup, and we get a penalty early in the game, and I'm on the penalties, and I didn't only smash it over the bar. I think it went out of the stand. And I think they're still looking for the ball today. And anyway, I missed it. Local derby, and I get the first penalty early in the half, and end up missing it. And of course, I could hear some of the fans at the time, get him off, boo, and all that, and rightly so, because it's a free kick at goal. You expect people to score, don't you? But then, luckily enough, or whatever you may call it, I ended up scoring a hat-trick after the game against Bristol City. In fact, I scored a couple of hat-tricks that season. I think I was leading goal scorer in the League Cup that season. I had to go to London to get an award. I scored a couple against Portsmouth as well. In the League Cup, they were in the first division at the time. Mickey Quinn was playing for them. That's what I remember about that. But with that game, I missed a penalty and ended up scoring 3 after it.
Yeah, I remember those at Fratton Park. Will probably remember the voice of Alan Ball piercing through the evening sky.
Yeah.
It was quite a night. Right, let's move to your career at Swindon as manager then. October 1998, Steve McMahon departs. Won the championship, of course, of Division 3. In you come. Ricky Hunt is the chairman. Wants somebody who bleeds red for Swindon to come in as manager of Swindon Town. But boy, this was a tough old time for you, wasn't it? I mean, you're not coming into a club with millions to spend. This is a club really having problems. It's a no-brainer to come as manager of Swindon, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. I still had a house in Cricklade. My family was still there. So it was no brainer. I was up at Peterborough at the time, and I was still playing, and I was assistant manager to Barry, and I was having a great time. To be fair, I was leading goal scorer up at Peterborough, banging a few goals in and whatever. And then right out of the blue, Barry pulled me one day. He said, "Jim," he says, Swindon Town have come in for you. I said, what? I said, what, to play? He says, no, to manage. I said, all right, okay. He says, I think Steve McMahon's going, and they've asked if you'd like to go and speak to him. I said, well, of course I would. He said, yeah, well, Barry said, I thought that, he says, get yourself down there, mate. You see, you'll do a great job. Give us a ring if you need us and whatever. And I went down and spoke to Ricky, and nice fella. I know Ricky didn't get on with some of the fans, or some of the fans never got on with Ricky at the time, but he was a genuine bloke. I thought he was a real good chairman. He didn't beat about the bush, Vic. He told me the club were looking for investors. Financially, we're struggling at the minute, and if we can come in, I think Swindon was second from bottom at the time. He said, if you can come in and just galvanise these lads and get the best out of what you've got, we'll keep digging away and trying to get new investors into the club, and hopefully we'll have a bit of money for you to spend so you can improve the squad and the team. And of course, having played for Swindon and still having a lot of friends in the Swindon area, it was like a dream come true to me. Didn't work out like that in the end, I have to say, but there were bad times and sad times. When a club goes into administration, and I had to sell players to generate some money because the bank stopped the overdraft and stuff. I remember when we were away from home, we had to take cash to pay for the hotels, where before it used to be paid on card, but that was all stopped by the banks, you see. So it was a real difficult time, and it was. But I tried to, as much as I could, tried to be upbeat. And I said to the players, and said, it was always in my team talk, listen, our fans expect us to go out and roll the sleeves up and give it our best shot. There's no sense in feeling sorry for yourself. It is what it is. Just go out there. If you get picked to play in the team, give it your very best. If you're not in the team, you've got to fight to get in it. And that's the way we went along. And we managed to get enough results to stay up that year. But unfortunately, the situation got a little bit worse the next season, and there was a change in the chairmanship. Obviously, Cliff Puffett came in. Cliff was Swindon through and through, wanted to do his best, but I think he realised when he took over the job how difficult a job it is being chairman of a football club. You're the one that everybody looks to for the finances. You're the one that everybody looks to give the right answers and stuff. And I felt sorry for Cliff, to be honest with you. It's an awful thing. And look at football these days, Cliff. You've got to be a billionaire, haven't you, to own one of the top clubs. It was millionaires years ago, but it's billionaires now that run the top flight and stuff. It's just gone ridiculous. But it was a hard time for a lot of people, and I was absolutely devastated because I was a young manager. I was taking my coaching qualifications while I was at Swindon, so I was trying to do that on top of obviously managing the team, and then having all the stuff for the going into admin and that, and then I had to lay some of the staff off. Mickey Walsh ended up going, and it was just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, and it's very, very hard to keep yourself upbeat when so many things are falling apart. I remember a couple of the girls got laid off that worked in the office, and they were crying their eyes out, and I was just beside myself. I wasn't angry or anything, because it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the situation at the time, and I look back on it now and I thought, well, could I have done things a little bit different? Could I have, maybe got a bit more out of the players and that? And yes, I probably could, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But at the time, it wasn't very good, that's for sure.
Yeah, Steve Sutherland was one of those, I think, who left the club. He says to remember himself to you. And this is a question from Paddy, who says, maybe you could ask Jimmy about the departure of Mark Waters. For me, it was a privilege pain to watch Mark, head and shoulders above the rest of the players he faced for STFC, up there with Mickey Hazard and Glenn Hoddle in the red shirt for pure skill. Now, he's one of those players you had to pinch yourself to think he's playing for Swindon Town. He was a terrific footballer.
Great player.
What was the story behind Mark Walters' departure?
Well, the thing behind that was, you know, I say at the time, the banks had stopped overdrafts and everything else. The Cliff come to me one day. He said, "Jim, we've got to generate some money." He said, because otherwise we'll just go out of business, you know. So I was sitting on the phone, ringing other managers, saying, "Would you be interested?" Now I look back on that now, Vic, and whether it was naivety or whatever, you know, you don't sit on the phone trying to sell your best players, because if you sell your best players, you're not going to get results, and then you end up getting the sack anyway. But the situation was that we just couldn't generate enough money to pay the staff's wages, the players' wages, everything else, the gas, electric in the place. You know, there was just no money. You know, I remember ringing up, and Iffy Anura and Ty Gooden ended up going to Gillingham for £200,000. Well, Iffy, as you know, was 6'2", decent centre forward. He was 300-400 grand of anybody's money. You know, and Ty Gooden was as good a wide player as you get in at that level at the time. You know, and I've had to say, you know, more or less give them a push out the door to generate the money so that we could continue to survive. It was that simple. And the other thing Cliff said was, you know, it's not just about who you can get money for. Can you get, you know, some of the higher earners off the wage bill? See if anybody else is interested. And Mark was obviously one of them. There was a couple of other lads that left as well. And I remember having to play 3 or 4 of the young lads at the end of the season. I remember we played Fulham at home. We had 2 or 3 young lads. James Williams was one of them. He played at the back. Yeah.
I was going to say to you, there were 2 memorable results from a pretty miserable season. Blackburn at home, which you won, I think it was 2-1 on a Tuesday night, and Fulham at home, which you won 1-0. Grazioli got the goal, I think. They were terrific results, weren't they? I mean, and Fulham at the time was spending money because they had the Al Fayed money, didn't they? So
that's right,
you know, that was a terrific couple of results for you.
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant, you know, and that's the way. You know, I remember saying to Cliff, you know, we need to start like looking to the youth and investing in younger players and bringing, because at the time, you know, Mark was one of them players. He was one of the older players. There's quite a few. Big Alan McDonald was one of the older players. He was assisting me at the time, but he was still had a player's contract, and he was still on the playing staff. And there was probably 7 or 8 players on or around the 30 mark, or a bit older, Vet, you know. So, and I remember saying to Vet, you know, we need to, you might have to take a hit here, get relegated, but then we need to start looking at bringing the young players through, start having a look at the lads and the, you know, coming through the youth team into reserves. And if you're looking to sign anybody, sign them at a young age so to stay with the club for a period of time and stuff. And some of them young lads that come in the team, they've done fantastic, you know, to get results again. I mean, Fulham were up the top of the league spending money on everybody, weren't they, at the time, and we ended up beating them. I remember drawing at home against Nottingham Forest as well. That was another good performance, you know, and some of the young lads done really well in that. But my hands were tied, really. I couldn't really do anything. I mean, I couldn't really exactly turn around to Cliff Puffett and the board and say, no, I'm not selling any of the players, you know, because that's what any other manager would have done. They would have said, no, I'm not selling any players because it makes my hand weaker. You know, I'm not going to get results and stuff. But when somebody sat in front of you and nearly tear, because Cliff loves the club, you know, he was Swindon through and through. When he was saying, I admire how you keep on the up all the time, Jim. He said, it's devastating for me. And I remember him talking to me. I was in the boardroom talking to him, and he said, you know, I'm sorry, but you've got to try and do the best you can to generate a bit of money so that we can continue to you know, play at this level of football, or else the club's looking like it's going to go out of business.
Yeah, Mark Waters,
So,
of course, going off to Bristol Rovers. And this is from Anthony. If you had your time again, what would you have done differently with Charlie Griffin, who at the time was looked upon as one of the great hopes, wasn't he? A Chippenham lad.
yeah,
Came in for a few games, scored a cracking goal, if I remember right, against Ipswich.
he did. Well, I signed him.
Yeah.
I signed him, and but he was again, because he'd come from that level of football. He had some brilliant games for us, Vic, and then some games he looked like he'd never even played for, So it was like that. It was just the balance, really. We had a look at it. I remember at the time we thought, well, maybe he needs a little bit of a rest and put him on the bench for a couple of games and all that business, But that's the way young players are. They're up and they're down. Sometimes you get a young player who's able to cope with all the pressures of performing at a level and doing it on a regular basis. But overall, you'll find that it's peaks and troughs. They'll have a good time for a couple of games, and then they'll have a bit of a setback. And that's the times as a manager or a coach, you've got to take them out of the arena. Because otherwise, if you keep playing them when they're struggling, it just makes them worse, and they totally lose all confidence that they've had. So it's trying to get the balance, and whether I've done that right or done it wrong, I don't know. But it was just how I seen it at the time, and we had to use what we had, and sometimes we had to play players that weren't particularly playing brilliant, because of other players like the Effie and Ty had to go, and then Mark went to Bristol Rovers, and then you're left with a smaller squad because you can't bring anybody in because when you're in an admin, can you? You've got to just play with what you've got.
Well, I remember one young player coming in with a number 40 on his back and playing for the town. One Jay Quinn. Do you remember your debut when you came back in again?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had to do it because we had a load of injuries at the time, and I didn't particularly want. I was too old. Let's face it. I was, what was I, 30, 39, 40 at the time, and and we had that many injuries and stuff. And big Alan McDonald, bless him, he God rest his soul, he said, Jim, you're going to have to either play or go on the bench. He said, we haven't got enough players, to make up the squad of the team. So. And I just thought, well, if I can go and do a bit for 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe help some of the younger players out and whatever. If I was struggling, it may give them a lift. Them realising they're better players than me now, But yeah, I played a few games, but it was the situation at the time, Vic, that you just had to muck in as best you could, under the circumstances, with having to sell players to generate a bit of money. A reduced squad, and then you had injuries on top of that. It was just it wasn't a good time at the club. That's for sure.
Sadly, of course, relegation followed, and the board decided to make a change. Colin Todd came in, and because our time is short, I'm just going to whiz through your rest of your managerial career, which is pretty good. A conference playoff win with Shrewsbury, also got to the playoffs with Cambridge. So you did okay, and. Yeah. What happened after that? Did you think you probably weren't suited to management, or did the chances never come up, or what happened?
No, I had another bad. It was bad enough. At Swindon, what happened, but then I took over at Bournemouth, and I was only there 3 months, and the club went into administration. Now, the story behind that is that there were minus 17, 18 points when I took over, and I got the club to +7. So we were going in the right direction. But at the time, it was much like Swindon. They were looking for investors at the time. It didn't have any money. They had quite a few players earning quite a bit of money at Bournemouth that weren't doing the business, that weren't pulling the finger out. And they were looking for people to come in to put money into the club, and they got this guy in. I think his name was Paul Murray, and I didn't get on with him at all, to be honest with you. He was telling me to do boxing training with the team, and he was coming in to before the games and staying in while I was doing my team talk and whatever. And I ended up pulling him, saying, listen, you're making me uncomfortable. I know the players are uncomfortable. If you want to come in and say all the best, lads, and whatever. And anyway, after that, he stopped talking to me. And this, I had a call New Year's Eve at 8 o'clock to go down to the Royal Bath Hotel for a meeting with Savi Sabramuto, who was the chief executive, and this Paul Murray. And I thought I was going to a meeting where they were going to say, we've got a bit of money for you to spend in the January window. I brought my wife down to, and my newborn son, Alex, down to Bournemouth. I was in a rented house at the time. My wife was natal and all that business, not she was having a tough time coping with everything. And only for this Paul Murray to say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to let you go.
No.
And I said, you're absolutely kidding me. Now, the week before, this Savi Sabramuto pulled me. He said, could you have a word with Eddie Howe? Because they sacked Eddie Howe with Kevin Bond when I got the job. Because they had a runner as they never won a game for 7 or 8 games, whatever it was. And he said, we can't afford to pay him off, but he loves the club. Could you find him a coaching position? I said, well, I'll have a word with Eddie. I've heard he's a nice fella. Jason Tyndall was my assistant at the time, who played with Eddie, and he was singing Eddie's praises. So I had a meeting with Eddie, great fella, and I said, listen, Eddie, you're more than welcome to come on the coaching staff. Can you have a look at the youth setup and see if you can revamp it? They haven't had any kids coming through in recent years. Go to Southampton, Crewe Alexander, a couple of clubs, see how they work things and see if you can bring some new ideas to the board and you can look after the youth setup. Well, he was nearly crying, Vic. He said, oh, you don't know how much this means to me, blah, blah. Anyway, cut a long story short. And this sums football up for me. Got Eddie in, and it was only 2 weeks after that they told me, oh, sorry, we're going to have to let you go. I end up going, and then Eddie got the job. And Eddie's a good manager, don't get me wrong. He took over the team. He kept them up that season. We were going to stay up anyway, in my opinion. But the disappointing bit to it all was I never got a phone call off Eddie Howe to say, sorry, what happened, Jim, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, Eddie, fair play to you, thanks very much, get on with your business. And I never heard a thing from Jason Tyndall, who I brought into the club, and I brought him into Cambridge when I was manager there after beating Weymouth 7-0 where he was manager. He got the sack at Weymouth, and I brought him in as a scout at Cambridge, and he went to the playoff final with us and everything else. Couldn't get him on the phone, never answered his phone, and never had a phone call off Eddie to say all the best or whatever. So that sort of kind of put me right off football, thinking, well, is everybody crooked? Or everybody out to stab everybody else in the back? Because I'd done quite well. It took 3 teams to playoff finals and whatever. But that was enough for me, really. I thought, well, I can't be doing this. If that's what you've got to do to get on, And Eddie Howe, look at him at his Newcastle. Yeah. I mean, they're struggling at the minute, but he'd done a great job at Bournemouth. He left there and he went to Burnley. Didn't have a good time there. Went back to Bournemouth and got them in the Premier League and everything else. Good luck to him, but it doesn't cost anything at all, Vic, to pick the phone up and say, Jim, I'm sorry what's happened, all the very best. And that would have been enough for me. So it kind of, when things like that happened, it kind of puts you off. Because I've always been straight. I've not lied about anything. Had a very disappointing time at Swindon, a club I love, and I still love. And, I went in as manager with all the hopes in the world to be a success and get them the bit of success that the fans crave at any football club. And they're always good to me, the fans. When I played, I had a great time there. I played with some great players, and it's always going to be a big part of my life. But it was a very, very disappointing time, you know. But that's what it is, and we can look back on it now, and as I say, you're more experienced now and whatever. And I just look back and think, well, could I have done things a little bit? Yeah, I could. Yeah, everybody can. You know, when you look at things in hindsight, you can probably improve on one or two things, and maybe if I had made a couple of decisions a bit better, particularly to do with myself, because I was just probably every time, you know, Cliff come to me and said, "Can you do that?" You know, I was, yeah, of course, you know, if that's what the club needs and all that, but maybe I should have protected myself a little bit. I don't know.
Well, you are very well respected at Swindon, I can tell you this. Anthony says, was it you who got Michael Carrick for us on loan? I was trying to, was it around about then?
Yes.
I'm just trying to, yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a player who you looked at and you thought, boy, he's going to be all right, isn't he? I remember seeing him first.
Well, I went to what, that's part of the job that, you know, the fans don't see when you train in the morning and in the afternoon. I'd say to Big Alan, I said, let's get down to Charlton. West Ham are playing Charlton reserves, and we'll go and have a look and see, you know, because I played a Harry for Harry at Bournemouth. I knew Harry well, and let's see what they've got. And I went down this particular game, me and Alan, and we seen Carrick, and he was head and shoulders above anything on the park. Absolutely brilliant. And I thought, well, you've got to be cheeky. So I phoned Harry up and I said, Harry, you know, have you got any? I didn't go, can we have Michael Carrick? I said, you know, have you got anything that, I'm looking for a midfield player. Have you got anything in the midfield that, you know, would do us? You know, he didn't know I was at the game the previous week. And he said, well, we've got one or two young lads that we need to get out to get games in somebody's first team. Who do you fancy? And I said, well, who do you recommend out of the ones you've got? He says, well, the best one's Michael Carrick. And I said, well, is there any chance of him? And he said, yeah. He said, you can have him. He says, you don't have to pay for him as long as you put him up. There's a story behind that as well, by the way. As long as you put him up and look after him and whatever. And anyway, there was the Vale Hotel in Cricklade, because I lived in Cricklade. I thought, well, I'll get Michael in there because I knew the guy that owned it, and so I can look after him. And I'd go down of a night, you know, and make sure he was okay. And sometimes I'd have a bite a week with him and make sure he's comfortable and everything else. And we had him for, I think it was 3 months or something. And he was absolutely brilliant. It was just a dream, you know, everything. He trained well. He had brilliant manners. He was just, everything about him was top dollar, you know. And you could see he was just going to go on and just take the football world by storm, you know. And it was no surprise to me at all that you know, seeing Michael go on and achieve the great things that he did. And I was very lucky. One of my mates phoned me a few years ago and said, "Oh, have you read Michael Carrick's autobiography?" I said, "No, I didn't even know he had one." And apparently, I'm in his book, and he says some really nice things about me. But years after that, Vic, I done a bit of scouting for England, and I had to go to Old Trafford one day, and this was like 20 years after we had Michael as a kid on loan, and I had to do like player reports. I had to do Wayne Rooney. It was all England players. Steve McLaren was the England manager at the time. Wayne Rooney, Ferdinand, Neville the fullback, and I had to do a report on Leroy Rossinia's son, who played for Fulham at the time.
Yeah, Liam.
He was fullback. And I remember, what's the first half? I think United took a 1 or a 2 goal lead. Went into the directors' lounge, because that's where they look after the scouts at United. That was Alex Ferguson. You didn't go get put in a room out the back somewhere. You know, if you were there scouting for another club or whatever, they always looked after you well. So we were in the directors' lounge, and Michael Carrick was injured that time, so he wasn't. And I was looking forward to seeing him play. And then all of a sudden, all I hear is Jimmy, and I've looked around. It's Michael, and this is 20 years after I had him as a kid at Swindon. And he said, "Oh, it's lovely to see you," and all that. He said, "Oh, thanks for what you've done for me," and you know. And this was like England top England player at the time, the best midfield player arguably in the Man United team at the time, although he was out injured for that game. So singing my praises, and I couldn't believe it. It was just fantastic to see him. And as I say, he's given me a good mention in his book as well. So yeah, great player, and bless Harry, he never charges a penny. But I think the White Hart still after the money for the bill when he stayed there.
That's the one by the clock tower, if I remember right, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Anthony White says, refreshing honesty, Jim. Thank you for some wonderful memories whilst playing for the Robin. And Andy says, for the Robins, loved him before tonight, love him even more now. And the one thing we haven't really got time to... we haven't got time to go into your international career. Your record goal scorer for Northern Ireland, for goodness sake. And you scored a wonderful volley against the Republic of Ireland. And, an amazing career. World Cups and European Cups and all that kind of stuff. And that green shirt behind you.
I've had a great time. I got International Player of the Year off the back of that goal, against the Republic. But it was... I won't go on too long, but that game, Vic, was in 1993, and there was still a lot of trouble going on at the time. In fact, in the days leading up to that game, there was 18 people shot dead in Northern Ireland, people gunned down on the doorstep and everything else. And you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. And the Republic of Ireland players, they were absolutely having kittens coming up to Belfast to play in that game, because there was all sorts. There was supposedly mortars aimed at the pitch and this, that, and it. There was all sorts of supposedly going on, but it was a massive game, obviously a World Cup qualifier. And if we'd have beaten the Republic, they might not have qualified for the World Cup finals in '94. Of course, I scored the first goal of the game, which and that season was the season I scored 40 at Reading, and everything I hit went in. I connected right on the meat. And that one was laid back to me. I think it was Kevin Wilson laid it back, and it was off the ground, and I just scissor kicked it, volleyed it from about 20 odd yards out, straight in the top corner over Packy Bonner, And they had people like Paul McGrath playing, Kevin Keane was playing. There's so many great players. Big Niall Quinn was up front, Alan McLaughlin, who's I was devastated to hear of his passing a while ago. I looked after it when he first came to Swindon from Manchester United. I looked after him a little bit. Alan used to bring him home for tea and stuff, and he said that in his book as well. He gave me a good mention. But he was a fantastic lad, and what a great player he was for the club as well. What a great servant, But he scored obviously the equaliser, which was great. We couldn't qualify, Vic. And as much as we wanted to beat the Republic, at the end of the game, I was absolutely cock-a-hoop that the Republic qualified, and also that Alan McLaughlin, bless him, got the equaliser. Great lad. It upsets me to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you said, a wonderful player and a wonderful bloke, Alan McLaughlin.
Yeah,
no question about that.
Fantastic fella.
Yeah, I think it's worth remembering as well with your goal that you actually started the move off, if I remember rightly. You were involved in the move early on.
Yeah, I laid it off. Yeah, I remember laying it off, and then the ball went into Big Ian Dowie, who was probably one of the ugliest players I ever played with, by the way. Big Ian, great fella, funny. He's so funny, but he thinks he's like Richard Gere, But yeah, big Ian. He drilled it into Kevin Wilson, who laid it off to me. And anyway, rest is history. Went on the roof of the net, and the roof come off the stand that night. It was fantastic. In fact, after the game, we all went out for a drink in Bell. I never bought a drink all night. It was just on tap. It was just fantastic. And the number of people. It's 30 odd years later. The number of people that come up to me and. That was at West Ham for I can't remember what game it was, about 3 or 4 games back. And Martin Allen was in one of the other lounges, and he said, Jim, he says, there's 2 Irish people here that want to meet you. They're desperate to meet you. And I had to go, because it's a big stadium, the London Stadium. and I had to walk through. It seemed like about half a mile to get to this other lounge to meet these two guys. And this guy he said, "Oh, I was at the game." He said, "You'll go." He said, "I'll never forget it." And they were hugging me and kissing me, and it was just like, you know. But yeah, it was fantastic. It was a great game.
Steve says, "Been lovely to listen to your reminiscences. Truly top bloke. We all wish you well, and we do." And I'm going to bring this to a close now, Jim, because I'm sure you got other things to do. But what a joy talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. And we could go on all night.
Great
quite
pleasure.
frank. We could go on all night. Quite frankly,
it's lovely to see the team doing well. I watched the game against Forest Green when they played brilliantly, I thought. And obviously the Man City, the cup game, I watched that, and yeah, I always look out for Swindon's results. It's the first team I look for. You know, it's the first club I played for, professional. I know there's so many people. My daughter still lives in Cricklade. My ex-wife's down there, Jackie. It's just a massive part of my life. Yeah.
Well, many fans remember you very fondly, I think it's fair to say, and I hope you've got that tonight. And Terry says, that was an easy night, Vic. Because you tell such wonderful stories. So we really appreciate it. Chris, hello.
Fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. And I think we'll have to have a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to have a part 2.
Well, I got all these notes here. Look, I spent ages on these.
All your homework, and you didn't need it, Vic.
No.
That's probably me rambling on. That's what.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think people would have been listening to that and just absolutely, engrossed in it, quite frankly. So
yeah, and I think this is we've had not as many questions, I think, because they've just been fascinated listening. So they're not asking them. Yeah. But I tell you,
some of the best times. Just a little one. Some of the best times I ever had at Swindon is when I was in the reserves, and we used to have the players' bar on one of the landings. Do you remember, Vic?
Mm.
And we used to get in there. Some of the fans used to come in with us. We used to have a great time. Roger Higgs, my best mate. He was like running the bar at the time. He was in there all the time, and he was directing everything. And we had some great time. You never forget stuff like that, you know.
Well, here's a message from Roger Higgs. And it says, the hardest defender you played against, was it Matt Higgs?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's not fair. This was on holiday, and he set his son on me. We were playing we played in a 5-a-side game. There was about 5 or 6 ex-professionals. There was Mike Trusson. There was, I can't remember, the Andy Rhodes, the goalkeeper. He played for Glasgow Rangers and Oldham and stuff. There's 4 or 5 of us, but Matthew, who was like 12 at the time, was on the other side, and Roger sat him on me. He says, if he goes to the toilet, you go with him. And he sat him on me, and I never had a kick. I think it might have been the 15 pints of lager I had, mind you.
Possibly. Yeah, might have been, yeah. Having said earlier you don't drink very much, 15 pints of lager.
No.
I just think it's funny, Jimmy, because before we went on air, you said, I don't know if I'll be able to remember everything. So I think you've proved that you can.
It's amazing when stuff comes back to you, yeah.
Mark says, one of the best on the sofas ever. Fantastic listen. Thank you, Jimmy.
I was just going to say that because there's a lot of them coming through. That it's the best one yet and everything. So thank you very, very much. And we'll have to do this again. So I've got your number now.
No problem at all.
Got your number, so I'll be contacting you. But no, it's absolutely brilliant, Jimmy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all the Swindon fans. I really do hope we get promoted this season.
Definitely. We'd love to see you down at the county ground at some point with your book. That would be
I'll be down before the end of the season. I'll come to a game. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
Well, let us know and we'll arrange something. So that
I will do, Chris. Yeah.
Brilliant.
No problem.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. It's been a fascinating evening. Next week is the Monday night panel after the Bristol Rovers game, so I hope you'll join us for that. Have a good week. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and we will see you next week. Bye.